Namaskar, this is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. The US wants India to pick sides. Donald Trump's tariffs are all set to kick in. His team is now calling them sanctions. What is New Delhi's response? India has sent S Jaishankar to Moscow, India's foreign minister, on a 3-day visit. This is the second major visit from the Indian side in a matter of weeks. Earlier this month, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval was in Russia. Together, they're laying the groundwork for closer trade ties and a deeper defense partnership with Moscow. From oil to aircraft engines, India and Russia are back in sync. In fact, they're building new bridges. And it's not just Russia that India is working with. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi was in Delhi this week. India is set to resume direct flights to China. Visa rules are being eased. Both sides are talking reset. We'll tell you how it's taking shape. After leaving New Delhi, Wang Yi visited Kabul. He held a trilateral meeting with Pakistan and Afghanistan. We'll tell you what that means for the region. Also on the show, will Putin and Zelensky meet? Trump wants a deal, but a summit still looks uncertain. There's a new spat over Gaza, this time between Israel and Australia, and why India wants to crack down on online money games. In the US, Wall Street is sliding. Big tech is taking a hit. Is the AI bubble about to burst? And why everyone's talking about Collagen. Is it worth the hype? All this and more coming up. The headlines first. A big defense boost for India as it successfully test fires the Agni-5 intermediate-range ballistic missile. The launch took place off the coast of Odisha. The Agni-5 is a nuclear-capable ballistic missile developed by India's Defense Research and Development Organization, or DRDO. Iran says it is prepared for any new Israeli attack. Tehran claims it has developed missiles with greater capabilities than those used in June during the 12-day war with Israel. On Thursday, the Iranian army will reportedly begin a 2-day military exercise which will feature a wide range of cruise missiles. Chinese President Xi Jinping visits Tibet. It's his second trip there as China's leader. Xi arrived in the capital of Lhasa to mark the 60th anniversary of Tibet's founding as an autonomous region. Tibet holds high strategic importance for Beijing. Xi's last visit there was in July 2021. Japan hosts African leaders for a 3-day development summit as Tokyo tries to offer itself as an alternative to China. Over the past decade, Beijing has invested heavily in Africa, but with new lending drying up, countries are now grappling with a huge debt burden to China. And Denmark's government will eliminate sales tax on books in a bid to encourage more people to read. Currently, the Scandinavian country has a 25% tax on books, which is the highest in Europe. The move will cost the government more than $50 million a year. There's excitement in new friendships, but comfort in old ones. Just ask India. The jubilation around Donald Trump has turned sour. The US has slapped a 50% tariff on India. So what does India do? Firm up an old time-tested friendship. I'm talking about Russia. As we speak, Foreign Minister S Jaishankar is in Moscow. It's the second high-level visit this month. National Security Advisor Ajit Doval visited 2 weeks ago, and now Minister Jaishankar is visiting. He'll be in Moscow for 3 days. Today was all about laying the groundwork. First, he visited a war memorial in the Russian capital. He paid tribute to Russia's fallen soldiers in World War II. then it was down to meetings. Minister Jaishankar had one major engagement today. He co-chaired an inter-government commission, basically a bilateral platform to discuss crucial issues like trade, economy and science. He also met Russia's deputy prime minister during those talks. Tomorrow promises to be even bigger. Jaishankar will meet his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov. Chances are he will also get an audience with President Putin. Now, this visit is not happening at random. There is a lead-up and a follow-up. The lead-up is the tensions between India and the US. Trump has slapped secondary tariffs on India. His officials have accused New Delhi of funding Russia's war. And yesterday they went a step ahead. The White House press secretary dropped the S word.
The president has put tremendous public pressure to bring this war to a close. He's taken actions, as you've seen, sanctions on India and other actions as well. He's made himself very clear that he wants to see this war end.
Now, just to be clear, the US has not sanctioned India. The US has only tariffed Indian exports. Maybe it was a slip of tongue by the spokesperson, or maybe plain and simple ignorance. Either way, India won't like this characterization. And then you've got Russia, steady and eager as always. The Russian embassy in India held a press conference today. They made three crucial points. Number one, Russia is open to absorbing Indian exports. If you cannot sell them in America, send them to Russia. That's what Moscow is saying. Number two, Russia expects the oil sales to continue. That's the flashpoint between India and the US. Trump wants India to stop buying Russian oil, but Moscow expects the trade to continue. They also revealed the discounts offered to India, which is usually around 5%. And finally, number three, Russia wants to double down on military cooperation. They highlighted the new Sukhoi program. India and Russia are jointly upgrading India's fleet. These old planes will need new engines. The plan is to produce them together.
If the Indian goods are facing difficulties entering the US market, the Russian market is, would welcome Indian imports to the most extent possible. So don't worry about that.
Despite political situation, we can predict that the same level of oil import, crude oil import, will be approximately the same.
As far as we all know, we have agreed to jointly produce jet engines for Sukhoi jets here in India. And this is just one of the steps towards the further expansion and advancement of this cooperation.
There was also a lighter moment. One of the reporters asked the Russian envoy about India's new air defense mission. It was announced by Prime Minister Modi last week. He called it the Sudarshan Chakra. Listen to that exchange.
The Prime Minister talked about the missile shield during the Independence speech. Any Russian initiative on that? Would Russia help in the relationship?
No, maybe air defense shield. Air defense shield. Sudarshan Chakra. Next time ask in Hindi, I would understand better.
So that's the lead up. Fraying India-US ties and rejuvenated India-Russia ties. The follow-up is a high-stakes trip by Vladimir Putin. It has been on the cards for a while now. Putin has not visited India since the war broke out in 2022, but he is expected to visit this year around the end of 2025. Chances are Jaishankar will be discussing that upcoming trip. There are dates and details to be worked out. All these moves signal India's position. Its refusal to kowtow to Trump. On the 6th of August, he announced secondary tariffs on India. Trump announced secondary tariffs on India. The next day, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval met Putin in Moscow. Yesterday, the US talked about sanctions on India. Today, Minister Jaishankar landed in Moscow. So the message is quite clear. India will not abandon its relationship with Russia. If anything, it will double down. So hectic diplomacy is on. S Jaishankar flew to Moscow right after India hosted Wang Yi, the Chinese foreign minister. And Wang Yi visited India after a gap of 3 years. It was a 2-day trip, and by the looks of it, it was quite productive. India and China have taken a big step towards normalization. A new reset is taking shape. Both countries have announced a series of initiatives. It's a clear roadmap of where this is headed. Let's begin with the border. It is the most sensitive issue. The entire relationship depends on it, on how India and China handle the border. Both sides have agreed to form 2 new groups. The first group will focus on defining the border. Remember, there is no clearly defined border between India and China. There is no formal agreement. What exists is the line of actual control, a line that stretches more than 3,400 kilometers, and this is where most disputes arise. So the first group will tackle this issue. They will work on a framework for delimitation so that India and China can move from a line of actual control to a clearly defined boundary. That's what the first group will do. The second group has a different task. Their job is to improve border management, to make sure that the peace holds. And with the formation of these 2 groups, India and China are sending a message. They want to resolve the border situation and not let the differences boil over.
At the large group meeting, I am ready to work with you to build more consensus and identify the specific direction for our boundary consultations going forward and create more conditions for the improvement and further growth of our bilateral relations.
But there's more to this reset. It's also about trade, people, and connectivity. And on that front, there are significant developments to report. India and China have agreed to resume direct flights. They will finalize a new air services agreement. Both sides will make it easier to get visas, not just for diplomats, but also for tourists, students, and businesses. There is good news for pilgrims too. More Indians will be able to travel to Mount Kailash and Lake Mansarovar. This will happen from next year. Remember, these are sacred sites for Hindus. They're located in Tibet. For years, thousands of Indians have made this journey. But over the last few years, these routes were shut down, first because of the pandemic and later when border tensions escalated between India and China. This year, only 750 pilgrims were allowed to visit, but now China is ready to welcome more travelers again. The other big theme is trade. India and China have agreed to reopen border trade routes. 3 key passes will be reactivated: Lipu Lake in Uttarakhand, Shipkila in Himachal Pradesh, and Nathula in Sikkim. On top of that, both sides have pledged to facilitate investments, to remove barriers and to create new opportunities for trade. Remember, China is India's largest trading partner, but the relationship has been unequal. China exports far more to India than it imports from India. And all these steps could help in restoring balance. Later this month, Prime Minister Modi will travel to China. These breakthroughs are timed to his visit to China, and it will be a significant one. This will be his first visit to China in 7 years. He will attend the SCO summit. SCO stands for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It's a group of Eurasian countries. China has a rotating presidency this year, and it is hosting the annual summit in the city of Tianjin. Prime Minister Modi will attend it in person. A separate bilateral with President Xi Jinping is also expected, and China has welcomed Prime Minister Modi's decision to visit.
Our bilateral relationship is facing an important opportunity of improvement and growth. The Chinese side attaches great importance to Prime Minister Modi's visit to China to attend the SCO summit at our invitation at the end of this month. We believe that the Indian side will also make your contribution to a successful summit in Tianjin.
India has reciprocated by backing China's presidency of the SCO. Next year, India will host the BRICS summit. China has promised its support for that. And this appears to be more than diplomatic courtesy. It shows an effort towards deeper engagement, to look beyond bilateral relations and to focus on multilateral cooperation. And here's another example of that. During the talks in New Delhi, both sides agreed to defend the World Trade Organization, the WTO, to support a rules-based order and to promote a multipolar world. This is a direct signal to Donald Trump, to his protectionist policies and his tariff war. India and China want developing countries to have a greater voice. This is where they find common ground. In the last few days, they've made tangible progress, from border management to resumption of flights to trade and multilateral coordination. The momentum is visible. Prime Minister Modi's visit offers both sides a chance to consolidate these gains and to carry the reset forward. After New Delhi, Wang Yi had another stop. It was supposed to be Islamabad, but as it turned out, he did not go to Pakistan. He went to Afghanistan instead. It's his first trip to the country since 2022. Wang Yi landed in Kabul for a trilateral meeting. A meeting with whom? The foreign ministers of Pakistan and the Taliban. And this is an emerging triad: Pakistan, China, Afghanistan. The last round was held in May 2023. After that, things went downhill. Pakistan and the Taliban locked horns. China stepped back from investments in Pakistan. So the trilateral sort of faded. Then in May this year, it was revived by China. An informal round was held in Beijing, and now a formal trilateral summit is on in Kabul. The question is, what did it achieve? And how should India see this meeting? I'm sure these pictures will please the Taliban. Their foreign minister was playing host today, flanked by Wang Yi and Ishak Dar, the foreign ministers of China and Pakistan. As for the talks, they focused on two main issues. Number one, jointly combating terrorism. That's right, Pakistan and the Taliban will combat terrorism. As laughable as it sounds, this is a big deal. Pakistan is grappling with a major internal security crisis courtesy two groups: the TTP, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, and the BLA, the Baloch Liberation Army. Pakistan accuses the Afghan Taliban of helping these groups, so they're asking Kabul to crack down. And how did Kabul respond? With typical diplomatic promises that Afghan soil will not be used against Pakistan. Let's see if they keep that promise. Issue number two was CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. It's a massive Chinese investment project in Pakistan, a mix of roads, rails, refineries and ports. Total investments, around $70 billion. China is keen to expand CPEC into Afghanistan, and it's obvious why. Afghanistan is sitting on untapped natural resources worth around $1 trillion. Things like copper, gold, iron and oil. China is hoping to cash in on these reserves. Plus, geography matters. Afghanistan is prime real estate. To its west is Iran, and to its north is Central Asia. So Afghanistan can be a bridge for China, a direct window to Central Asia. Now, none of this is new information. We've been hearing about it since the fall of Kabul. So why haven't things moved forward? Well, because of the state of ties. Pakistan was China's link to Kabul. Their contacts were cultivated by Islamabad, but recently Pakistan's own ties with Kabul collapsed. So the link also weakened. And that is why China got Pakistan and Afghanistan together in Beijing. Their plan is to mend the bilateral relationship. On paper, they have leverage on both sides. That leverage is called CPEC. Which brings us to the second question. How should India see all of this? Well, look at the sequence of stops. Wang Yi flew to New Delhi first. He spoke about expanding ties with India. Then he flew to Kabul to meet with Pakistan and the Taliban. It's an open reminder of India's challenge, a multi-front challenge. Having said that, this is not the 1990s. India has its own equation with the Taliban today. The same foreign minister spoke to S Jaishankar in May, and he sided with India against Pakistan during Operation Sindoor. That's important to remember. Plus, China does not have a magic wand. It cannot fix the Pakistan-Taliban conflict overnight. And we saw an example of that this week. Islamabad hosted a conference on Afghanistan. In attendance were Afghan exiles, leaders and activists who opposed the Taliban. Basically, Pakistan hosted the Afghan opposition. And rumor is, Pakistan's Army Chief Asim Munir is livid with Kabul. He feels the Taliban betrayed Pakistan. So this triad will not be giving India sleepless nights yet. But it will be marked in the to-do list. Let's turn to Ukraine. 3 years into the war, tens of thousands of people dead, cities in ruins, and multiple failed attempts at peace. Talks, summits, meetings, we've seen everything, yet the war grinds on. In the last 7 days, we've seen another such attempt. Donald Trump met Vladimir Putin in Alaska. Then he hosted the Ukrainian president in Washington, D.C. Zelensky traveled to the US along with 7 other European leaders. They met, they shook hands, clicked photos, and decided on another meeting, a face-to-face between Putin and Zelensky. But will that really happen? Will the leaders of Russia and Ukraine meet? That's the billion-dollar question. And the answer depends on who you ask. On paper, the idea is quite simple, even logical. Putin and Zelensky sit down together and they hammer out a path to peace. The first proposal, in fact, came from Trump. He floated the idea of a 3-way summit between Putin and Zelensky and with Trump at the center. But then he backpedaled. He said, perhaps the 2 leaders should meet alone first.
I called President Putin, and we're trying to work out a meeting with President Zelensky, and we'll see what happens there. And then if it works out, then I'll go to the Trilat and close it up.
Europe was quick to offer suggestions. They went straight to the venue. One option was Geneva, neutral and symbolic. Another option was Budapest. As of today, it's all in the realm of possibility. There is no formal agreement. There is no format of a meeting. So the proposal is less a concrete plan and more of a floating balloon. The first question to address is this: are Putin and Zelensky even interested in such a meeting? The Russian president said he's open to the idea. That's what he told Trump. The next day, the Russian foreign minister walked that back. His name is Sergei Lavrov. He says such meetings must be, and I'm quoting, carefully prepared.
Step by step, gradually, starting from the expert level, and then going through all the necessary steps in order to prepare the summits. This is the kind of serious approach we will always support.
In Kremlin speak, that means one thing. It's not happening anytime soon. Putin may see talks as useful only if Zelensky is ready to concede territory. Otherwise, why bother? Also, Trump has added that Putin may not want a deal.
You know, we're going to find out about President Putin in the next couple of weeks, that I can tell you. And we're going to see where it all goes. It's possible that he doesn't want to make a deal.
Now let's come to Zelensky. What does he want? The Ukrainian leader is cornered by war. His front lines are crumbling. So Zelensky insists that he's open to any format. But his red lines are clear. He wants security guarantees and Western backing.
Security guarantees will probably be unpacked by our partners, and more details will emerge. All of this will somehow be formalized on paper within the next week to 10 days, like I said before.
So why is Trump pushing so hard for this? Because the US president loves the optics of a deal. In Alaska, he boasted that he could deliver a ceasefire. By the time he landed in Washington, he admitted that it was, and I'm quoting again, a tough one. And his logic seems to be this: get Putin and Zelensky in a room and then see if history bends towards them. Which basically means that Alaska may go down as a photo op. Great optics, but very little to show for it. Meanwhile, Europe is hedging its bets. Their leaders are dangling summit venues. Their military chiefs are sketching out contingency plans. NATO commanders are meeting virtually. Britain's defense chief has flown to Washington. Everyone is talking about security guarantees. But the problem is, Europe cannot move without Washington. And right now, Washington is sending mixed signals. What's worse, nothing has changed on the battlefield. You see, the diplomats may shuffle papers, the presidents may shake hands, but the war is still grinding on. Russian troops hold the advantage in several regions. They are pressing on with the offensive. Ukrainian forces are stretched and exhausted, and the bombs keep falling. On Monday night alone, Russia fired 270 drones and 10 missiles. So diplomacy has not slowed the artillery. If anything, Moscow is demonstrating that it still has the upper hand. So what has this flurry of diplomacy achieved? Alaska produced the headlines. Washington produced the handshakes. But the fundamentals remain unchanged and the war remains exactly what it was. Brutal, grinding, and far from resolution. Diplomacy has always had its fair share of drama, but every now and then a quarrel between nations feels less like a chess match and more like a high school spat. And tonight we are bringing you the latest example. It's Israel versus Australia. The very public falling out between their prime ministers, Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel and Anthony Albanese of Australia. And here's how it started. Netanyahu called Albanese a weak man. Albanese responded but managed to keep his cool. And what was the trigger? Australia has decided to recognize Palestine as a separate country. Our next report has more.
Australia will recognise the state of Palestine. The Netanyahu government is rapidly expanding illegal settlements. Until Israeli and Palestinian statehood is permanent, peace can only be temporary.
It started, as these things often do, with words sharp enough to draw blood. Israel's prime minister accused his Australian counterpart of nothing less than betrayal. Betrayal of Israel. Betrayal of the Jewish community in Australia. Benjamin Netanyahu took it one step further by calling Anthony Albanese a weak politician. Prime Minister Albanese, for his part, seemed almost amused by the theatrics.
I don't take these things personally. I engage with people. Diplomatically, he's had similar things to say about other leaders. What I say is that Israel, of course, increasingly there is global concern. And global concern because people want to see an end to the cycle of violence.
If that sounded like the grown-up in the room trying not to rise to the bait, his ministers were less restrained. Home Affairs Chief Tony Burke shot back at Netanyahu.
But on the issue of that you go to, particularly there, about strength versus weakness, strength is not measured by how many people you can blow up or how many children you can leave hungry.
So how did this begin? Israel and Australia, until recently, counted each other as close friends. So how did they end up in this row? The immediate trigger was Australia's announcement that it would recognize a Palestinian state. It was a move coordinated by several nations. Nations that have grown increasingly uncomfortable with the war in Gaza and the scale of civilian suffering. For Netanyahu, though, recognition of Palestine isn't diplomacy, it's heresy. He has cast it as nothing less than a reward for Hamas' October 7th attack on Israel. So when Canberra joined the list, Netanyahu didn't just push back, he lashed out. The insult-laden attack on Albanese came just hours after another trigger. Australia had barred Simcha Rothman, a far-right lawmaker in Netanyahu's coalition, from entering the country. Rothman, known for his hardline views, was scheduled to speak at events organized by the Australian Jewish Association. Immigration officials, however, pulled the plug. That was enough to ignite a tit-for-tat. Foreign Minister Gideon Saar accused Canberra of fueling anti-Semitism at a time when Jewish communities in Australia were already facing attacks. The diplomatic temperature shot up several degrees. The bigger question is why Australia chose this moment to recognize Palestine. The answer lies partly in the numbers. More than 62,000 people killed in Gaza since October 7th.
Food and aid blockades are turning the Strip into what humanitarian agencies describe as a graveyard for children. For Albanese, the mounting civilian toll made neutrality untenable, and Australia is hardly the first to recognize Palestine. 147 of the UN's 193 members already do, but the timing matters. With the UK, France, and Canada making similar announcements, it created a domino effect. Israel now faces not just its traditional critics, but some of its closest Western allies turning the screws diplomatically. Netanyahu, in response, has doubled down. He's accused leaders like Albanese, Macron, and Keir Starmer of siding with rapists, kidnappers, and baby killers. Strong words, perhaps too strong, at a time when Israel is under growing pressure over Gaza. The fallout from the Australia spat is still unfolding. The cancelled visas, the rhetorical barbs, the public scolding, these may seem like small things. But in diplomacy, small things often signal big shifts. And this one hints at a relationship that may not return to normal anytime soon.
Do you play online games? Do you spend money on those games? If you do, listen carefully because this next story concerns you. The Indian government has tabled a new bill in Parliament today. In a nutshell, it bans online money games. We're talking about any online game that involves real money. Your fantasy sports leagues, your online poker, your own online rummy, all of these will be banned if this bill is passed. And it's already been passed by the Lok Sabha, which is the lower house of Indian Parliament. The next stop is the Rajya Sabha, the upper house. This bill will impose a blanket ban. It does not matter if the game requires skill. It does not matter if it's purely luck. All money games will be banned. Naturally, the gaming industry is worried. They have written a letter to Home Minister Amit Shah. They're calling this move a death knell. Tonight, we'll take a deep dive into this legislation. Why was it necessary? What does it do? What will be the impact? And is this the right decision? The government has given two broad reasons for this move. One is national security. Many of these games are used to launder money. They park these funds in offshore accounts. New Delhi has also linked these games to terror financing. So that's the first and major concern. The second reason is social and economic harm. Families have plunged into debt. Teens have fallen prey to addiction, and in some cases, even suicides have been reported because Indians spend a lot of money on this. Look at the UPI payment data. From April to July this year, Indians spent 41,000 crore rupees on online games. That's around $4 billion. For perspective, this is also the kind of money that Indians spent on pharmacies for medicines. So the government says enough is enough. It is time to act. Next is question number 2. What does this bill do? Simply put, it outlaws online games that use money. If you offer such games, you will be punished. 3 years in jail, plus a fine of up to 1 crore rupees, which is around $115,000. That's the fine you face. Even promoting such games will attract punishment. Say an influencer posts about it, or a Bollywood actor appears in a gaming ad. That's 2 years in jail plus 50 lakh rupees in fine. So the government is not playing around. They are very serious about cracking down. Next is question number 3. What will be the impact? We'll focus on the skill gaming industry because no one here is defending gambling. So let's talk about skill gaming. Skill gaming in India is valued at $23 billion. The annual revenue is around $3.5 billion. It contributes around $2.4 billion in direct and indirect taxes. Not to mention it creates jobs. The skill gaming industry has 2 lakh jobs. All these numbers are thanks to the large gaming community in India. In 2020, there were 360 million Indian gamers. By 2024, that number rose to 500 million gamers. So simply put, it's a massive industry. For gaming companies, this bill is a huge setback. Yes, they can still offer games without using money, but will people still play? Because money was a big selling point. The gamers are not just looking for a challenge, they're hoping to make a big buck. Without the money, you may see the traffic plunge. So that's one problem. And there's another downside too. Users may shift to playing with offshore gaming companies, maybe through VPNs or the dark net. Which brings us to the final question. Is this the right decision? The government clearly thinks so, because they are taking a huge financial hit themselves. Remember, online gaming is a big revenue stream for the government. Reports say they could lose $4 billion in GST, and yet the government is pushing on. So they clearly feel strongly about it. But where does that leave the Indian gaming landscape? Can the industry survive this move? Well, if they want to, they will have to adapt. The same bill also prioritizes esports. Basically, your FIFA and Formula One games. It seeks to set up training academies and research centers for esports. It will also create standardized rules for competitions. So the Indian esports scene could thrive, plus subscriptions are not banned. You can still pay for social or educational games. Only wagers are banned. As things stand, the industry will have to reinvent, move away from prize spots and focus on other revenue streams like sponsored tournaments, advertisements and subscriptions. We know it's not a straightforward debate. Banning something is almost always counterproductive. But in this case, the government appears convinced. So we'll have to wait and see how their plan unfolds. Yesterday we told you about the AI bubble. It is stretching like a balloon, one pin away from a pop. And that has left Wall Street jittery. For the last 18 months, Wall Street's rally has been powered by the so-called Magnificent Seven. What's the Magnificent Seven? Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Apple, Nvidia and Tesla. These are all big tech companies, 7 tech companies. Together, they make up nearly 40% of the S&P 500. That's the US stock market's main scoreboard. They track the top 500 companies in America, and these 7 companies make up 40% of that value. But here's the twist. These giants are not just market leaders, they're also each other's biggest customers. Microsoft buys Nvidia's chips, Nvidia runs on Microsoft's Azure cloud, and Meta spends billions on AI infrastructure that again boosts Nvidia. So it's a closed loop. And it's a loop that Wall Street is now questioning. Yesterday, Nasdaq fell by 1.5%. It's a tech-heavy index. And S&P was down by 0.6%. Nearly 70% of its companies were up. 70% companies on this index were up, but the index still fell because the AI-linked giants lost ground. That's how heavily dependent it is on the Magnificent Seven. And today the fall continues. The Nasdaq is still down by almost 1.1%. And the worst hit is Nvidia. It shed 3.5% in a single day. This is a $4 trillion company, remember, now hit by the AI jitters. And Nvidia is not alone. Palantir plunged nearly 10% in a day. ARM was down 5% despite being one of the most hyped chip IPOs in years. And Oracle and AMD lost 5 to 6% each. So the sell-off was systemic. And it shows you how AI optimism has been propping up an entire sector. But what led to the slide? If you're looking for a single spark, it was a blunt MIT study, a study that says 95% of AI pilot projects fail, 95%. That started the panic selling. And then came Meta. Until recently, Meta was dishing out $1 million packages, wooing AI engineers with Hollywood-level checks. But then they got the reality check. Reports suggest Meta is looking to downsize its AI department. Usually that's corporate speak for layoffs. So they spent millions hiring people only to fire some other people, which doesn't make sense. And clearly, Wall Street agrees because the Meta stock has tanked. It saw its worst 2-day drop since the month of April. Whichever way you look at it, the market is sweating. And here's the inconvenient truth, one that Silicon Valley will not tell you. AI is expensive. Training frontier models costs billions of dollars. Running them at scale costs billions more. In fact, big tech is projected to spend $400 billion on AI infrastructure in 2025, $400 billion this year alone. To put that in perspective, it's as much as the GDP of South Africa. Data centers are consuming as much power as small countries. Cloud bills are skyrocketing. And their logic is quite clear. Spend big now, dominate later. It's good to be ambitious. It's good to take risks. But at some point, companies will have to ask the awkward question. If the models are not boosting revenue, why are we spending like it's a moonshot? And that's when the budgets tighten. That's when hype meets reality. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has already called it a bubble. So where does that leave us? Well, first things first, AI is still powerful. It is the biggest technological revolution of our era. But the meta shakeup and MIT's reality check remind us of one thing: revolutions do not move in straight lines. There will be hype, there will also be crashes. Veteran investors have seen this before. In the late 90s, the internet was going to change everything. Billions poured into startups. Wall Street cheered until it stopped cheering. And now the same Wall Street has turned AI from a tech story into a market story. The risk is not that AI fails. The risk is that the market has already priced in a revolution which is still stuck in beta testing. And if history is any guide, revolutions rarely ever run on schedule. Now let's turn to India and the biggest challenge that policymakers face here today, the Trump tariffs. They're no longer a threat, they're about to become a reality. Donald Trump has shown no interest in mending ties and New Delhi is in no hurry to strike a deal. India would rather wait than accept a one-sided agreement. In the meantime, it will suffer a shock. So the immediate question is this: how does India manage the tariff shock? A strategy is beginning to take shape. India is ready to unleash the power of its domestic market to offset the losses from tariffs. But before we get to that, let's understand the scale of the hit. When the new tariffs come into effect, how much will India lose in exports? The government has put a number to it. Exports worth $48 billion will be affected. And which industries will take the biggest hit? Textiles, garments, furniture. These will be the biggest sufferers. They will bleed from the 50% levy imposed by Donald Trump. And it's not just the exporters who will be hit. The tariffs will have a trickle-down effect. They will hurt factories, small businesses, and the people who work in them. Remember, some industries are exempted for now, like electronics and pharmaceuticals. No tariff on them so far, but with Donald Trump, you never know. The exemptions may or may not last. So what is the solution? In the long term, India will have to find new markets for its exports. In the short term, India can absorb some of the shock. And this is where the GST reforms come in. GST, as you would know, is the goods and services tax. It's an indirect tax. You pay it on all goods and services that you buy, on almost everything that you buy. You pay a GST. And now the government is planning to overhaul this GST system. The Prime Minister announced it himself in his Independence Day address.
इस दिवाली में आपकी डबल दिवाली का काम मैं करने वाला हूं। इस दिवाली में आपको एक बहुत बड़ा तोहफा देशवासियों को मिलने वाला है। पिछले 8 साल से हमने जीएसटी का बहुत बड़ा रिफॉर्म किया। पूरे देश में टैक्स के बर्डन को कम किया, टैक्स की व्यवस्थाओं को सरल किया और 8 साल के बाद समय की मांग है कि हम एक बार उसको रिव्यू करें।
We told you about this on the show. We discussed the GST reforms, the new structure that's being discussed. As of today, there are 4 GST slabs in India: 5%, 12%, 18%, and 28%. In the new structure, India plans to remove 2 slabs, 12 and 28% rates. They will be removed. So you'll have 5 and 18%. So now essential goods will be taxed at 5%. And for the rest, it will be a flat 18% tax slab. Plus, a new 40% slab will be introduced, but this is only for sin goods like tobacco. Now, if these changes come into effect, they could supercharge consumption, and I'll tell you why. tax on several items is going to be slashed, meaning they would become cheaper. From food to clothes to household items and even cars, they're all expected to cost less. In fact, the State Bank of India has released an assessment, that's SBI. It is India's largest state-owned bank. It believes that if the GST rates are cut, India's GDP will get a boost. The SBI estimates gains of 1.988 trillion rupees. That's more than $22 billion. That's the gain that they expect. This would translate into a 0.6% gain in GDP. So this reform holds promise. In simple terms, what is lost in exports can be partially regained through domestic demand, by extending savings to the people, by lowering the tax burden on people. It's not a foolproof solution, but it's an important step towards economic resilience. You see, tariffs are a reality of modern-day trade. India will have to adapt. It will have to strengthen its domestic market and reduce dependence on foreign markets. GST 2.0 is more than a tax reform. It is a strategic hedge against sudden shocks, the kind that Trump specializes in. So India is betting on its domestic market to withstand this upheaval. This is not a silver bullet, but it is a reliable shield that can keep the economy moving forward. Where did humans come from? The question has long puzzled scientists, and fossils have tried to answer it. The oldest human fossil is millions of years old. It dates back to about 3 million years. But what happened before that, before 3 million years? Where did humans evolve from, and how did that evolution happen? For decades now, scientists have been looking for clues in Ethiopia, and they finally seem to have an answer. Researchers have found a fossil. They have discovered a set of teeth which belong to an ancient human relative, possibly from an unknown human species. Here's a report.
Homo sapiens, in other words, modern humans. All of us, we are the only surviving species of the genus, or the group of closely related species, called Homo. Our other cousins became extinct long ago, like Homo neanderthalensis or Homo erectus. But where did we come from? And not just the modern humans, but the entire genus. How did it originate? This question has long puzzled scientists. The oldest Homo fossil dates back to about 3 million years ago. But we don't know what happened back then, how our genus came about, or what happened afterwards. What we do know is that around this time, a potential ancestor vanished, the Australopithecus afarensis. It has an incomplete fossil record, about a 500,000-year gap in the record. But now, scientists have clues that could rewrite the history of human evolution. A decades-long archaeology project has been underway in northeastern Ethiopia. An international team of scientists has been working to uncover mysteries of the human origin, and they have uncovered fossils of our ancestors. The fossils discovered are teeth, and they come from the exact time period that has confused scientists for decades now. From between 2.6 and 3 million years ago. 10 of the teeth belong to the genus Australopithecus, the ancient human relative. Meanwhile, 3 teeth belong to the genus Homo, meaning both the genera were living together in the region. But what makes this even more fascinating is this. The Australopithecus teeth are different from previous discoveries of the genus, meaning scientists may have discovered a new species. It seems so unknown that scientists are not sure of how to name it yet.
So we know it's something new, but we want to be a little bit cautious about naming it until we have a better picture of all of the morphology, of how its whole body looked. The biggest excitement is around the fact that there's more than just 1 or 2 or possibly even 3 species of Australopithecus here in Eastern Africa.
This is a pivotal moment in the evolutionary past of humans, because this discovery reinforces a crucial idea, that human evolution is not linear, that we didn't evolve from a single lineage.
What makes it special and new is the exciting discovery that there is more diversity in the human lineage, in our origin, in our ancestry than we originally thought at this particular time. So between about 3 million and 2.5 million years ago, a lot of exciting things are happening.
So like most other organisms, humans most likely evolved from multiple species, living around the same time, merging, and impacting each other. A lot remains unknown, but with each ancient layer of dirt we, Homo sapiens, peel off, the closer we get to understanding where we came from.
Collagen is having a moment. From high-end clinics to grocery store aisles, from Instagram influencers to athletes to tech entrepreneurs and movie stars, everyone seems obsessed with collagen. It promises smooth, wrinkle-free skin, lustrous hair, stronger joints, nails, muscles, even better sleep. But is the hype real? Is collagen really the miracle cure? Should you take the supplement? Before we discuss this, as always, let's go back to basics. What is collagen? In simple terms, it is the glue that holds your body together. In real terms, it is a structural protein. It is one of the body's building blocks. It gives shape and support to everything, from your skin to your bones, your muscles, your cartilage, all of it. Collagen plays a huge role. So we have lots of it. Up to 30% of all protein in the human body is collagen. It is absorbed from the protein that we eat. But there is a problem. Collagen content declines with time. Our bodies are constantly changing, growing new cells, new skin, hair, remodeling the bones. So we use up a lot of collagen on a daily basis. By the time we hit our mid-20s, it breaks down faster than our body can replace it. So the skin begins to lose thickness, bones become weaker. We don't have enough collagen to meet the body's demands. Other factors make things worse, like sunbathing, not having healthy food, smoking, and drinking too much alcohol. This further slows down collagen production. And this is exactly why collagen supplements have become a booming global business. It's a business worth about $10 billion already. So what are these supplements? They come from animals, from cows, pigs, chickens, and fish, from their bones, skin, and connective tissue. As gross as it sounds, we rarely discover this because that is not how the supplements are packaged. What we see are injections, pills, powders, chocolates, even drinks and gummies. They claim to support our collagen levels and stave off signs of aging. Sure, some studies support these claims. They show benefits like pain reduction, better ankle function, or reduced wrinkles. But most experts are not so sure. And I will give you 4 reasons why. First, research is limited. There is insufficient evidence to back collagen supplements. They are not widely understood and not well regulated. And this is the second point, the regulation. Many governments are still on the fence, including the European Union. They have not given the health claims a green light. And yet the business is booming. There are fake products and false claims. Like vegan collagen. There is no such thing as that, vegan collagen. Or collagen in skincare, which it makes no long-term difference because it is not absorbed in the skin. And on top of this, there is industry bias, which is rife. And this is the third reason why collagen supplements can be untrustworthy, because most studies that show benefits are funded by supplement companies themselves. Plus, there are risks of side effects, like concerns for people with liver and kidney conditions. So collagen may be in vogue, but there is a lot to consider here. And if you are seeking out supplements, do remember this: science is still catching up to the hype. So consult a health professional you trust. And know that ultimately most scientists have the same piece of advice. The way we age is down to 2 things: genetics and lifestyle. So instead of spending hundreds of dollars on funky supplements, spend it on balanced diets and stick to the basics. Keep away from the sun, exercise, stay hydrated, and avoid smoking. It may sound like the same old health spiel, but if somewhere there is a road to the supposed fountain of youth, in all likelihood it is not lined up with collagen gummies. Why do you think Donald Trump is mediating in Ukraine? Is it because he can't stand violence, or is it because he wants a Nobel Prize? Turns out it could be an entirely different reason, a spiritual reason. Trump fears that he will end up in hell, And he thinks peace in Ukraine is his ticket to heaven. I wish I was making this up, but I'm not. Trump himself said these words. Later, the White House was asked for a clarification, and guess what? They doubled down on the path to heaven.
I think that's I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. I hear I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole.
I think the president was serious. I think the president wants to get to heaven, as I hope we all do in this room as well.
Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the stories. Several countries continue airdrops over the Gaza Strip. French firefighters join efforts to battle massive Spanish wildfires, and hundreds of pilgrims in Bulgaria celebrate the so-called Divine New Year. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1975, the Viking 1 was launched to Mars. It was an unmanned US planetary probe. The Viking 1 was the first spacecraft to successfully land on Mars. It sent back images of the Martian surface. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. His excitement in new friendships, but comfort in old ones.